Hi, Aural Skills 4 students. Today, as I'm taping this, is Thursday, April 23rd, and I want to give you one video for Aural Skills right before the end of the semester here, so that I can teach you a few new things that you'll need to know for the final exam, and also to give you some information about part of that final exam already. The last that I looked, the final exam for this class is scheduled for, I believe it's around Tuesday, I think that would be March 5th. I forget what time it is, but we can be flexible with the time since we're doing this remotely. At any rate, I'd like to talk to you today about some new rhythmic things, something new for harmonic dictation, and then also a new chord for real music as well, since harmonic dictation and real music go hand in hand. Before I get to those ear training topics, however, I do want to say a few words about what's coming up sight singing wise. And sight singing, I believe, will be at least the easiest to prepare and to plan for the final exam. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the sight singing final exam melodies. I'm going to give you the sight singing final exam rhythms. And I'm only going to ask you to learn those melodies and those rhythms. There will be nothing else new to learn in terms of sight singing. So we will be able to get you started on practicing and rehearsing the melodies and the rhythms as soon as I get them uploaded to you in Canvas. And again, I will do that as soon as I can after I post this video. So at any rate, I'm going to show you what is going to be on the sight singing final exam, and I want you to write this down in your notes so you have this information. As we talked about, the sight singing final exam is going to probably be sometime due on Tuesday, May 5th. And there will be the normal 3 components. So these are the only new melodies and the only new rhythms you need to practice from now until you're done with this class. There are 5 prepared melodies that I will place on the final exam. 11.3, 11.8, 11.13, 11.15, and 11.19. We have done a lot of melodies in Chapter 9 of your sight singing text. Chapter 10 is all rhythms, and we have already done those in the past, either a prior unit or a prior semester. So we are in Chapter 11 will be our final chapter for sight singing melodies. And these are the 5 I'd like you to start practicing and learning between now and the final exam. The prepared rhythm is going to be found on a handout that I am going to give you. I'm going to upload a copy of it through Canvas. The rhythms will not come out of the book, although many of the rhythms in Chapter 14 of your textbook will be similar to the rhythms on this handout. And the new item for rhythm, this final unit, and as we prepare for the final exam, is going to be performing triplets in simple meters and performing duplets in compound meters. I'll talk about that in greater detail in a moment. Okay, so when you get the handout, write this down in your notes. It's going to be numbers 1 through 9 on the handout, but not number 6. And then it's going to be, there's one exercise on the back of the handout too, or on the second page, however you get it, that I will hold you responsible for. So this will make a lot more sense once you are able to view and or print out the handout for the rhythms. And finally, the new melody is going to be, I have actually 2 new melodies. You'll only need to sing one. One of them is in a major key, and one of them is going to be in a minor key. So I don't know which one I will select for you, but I wanted to give you a heads up and give you this information right away, because I know if I waited until later in this lecture, I would probably forget to get you this information. So again, please write this down, pause the video if you need to get this in your notes, and more information will be forthcoming on Canvas as we go through the next week and a half. I'd like to start talking in this lecture about rhythm first. As I mentioned a moment ago, the rhythms that I want you to learn are going to be performing triplets in simple meters and duplets in compound meters. And this new rhythmic information applies both to the rhythms that will be on your sight singing final exam, and it also applies to rhythm dictations that will be part of, well, a rhythmic dictation for the ear training final exam. So it's both in the sight singing book and in the ear training text. It's important to try to get the hang of how to perform these as accurately as possible. Now, when we are in simple meters, we know that the standard beat divides into two equal parts. And we call that simple beat division. But we can force three equal parts. Even though it's not a dotted note value, we can force three equal notes to be part of a division. And if we're going to turn this from two equal notes of the beat into three equal notes, what we're going to do is we're going to end up using the same note values as the normal division. That is, I'm going to use eighth notes for my triplet, because eighth notes were used for the normal division of the beat. Okay, so the same note duration, eighth notes here, and what we're going to do is we're going to list a 3 along with those 3 eighth notes, and this will be sufficient indication to, for the performer to know that even though the beat is not a dotted value, we're going to force 3 equal part division out of that beat, and that is called a triplet. A triplet. One way that the book lists it, again, this is for simple meters or undotted note value beats. If a quarter note will equal to 2 even eighth notes, then if we force 3 into the same beat, they're also going to be eighth notes, and they just need to be notated with a 3 accompanying them. Now, on the other hand, let's go the other direction. Say we are in a compound meter, that is, the beat is a dotted value, such as a dotted quarter note. Now we know that in compound beat division, normally and regularly the beat divides into 3 equal parts. No 3 is needed along with these, because this is the normal standard division of the beat that we expect when we're in a compound meter. But we can also force a division of a dotted value to be divided into 2 equal parts. So for instance, I can actually do something like this, and as long as I put a little indication, that is a number 2 along with the division, then the performer will know that even though the beat is a dotted value, we are forcing just an even duple division of that beat. And this is called a duplet rather than a triplet. And if we use the sideways formula that the book uses, so a dotted note value serving as the beat in compound meter, that's normally divisible into 3 equal parts, as we know. But if we force 2 equal divisions, we'll use, again, the same note duration as the normal 3-note division. So eighth notes here, still using eighth notes here, but we have to mark a 2 with those that duplet division so that the performer knows that it is a duplet. It's kind of an irregular division, not something we would normally expect. Now, maybe this question has arisen in your mind already, but the question becomes, when I am in simple meter, for instance, how do I know where the second and the third notes of a three-note division line up with the second note of a duple division? Okay? Because when we're dealing with simple meter, we will be conducting and tapping in simple meters such as 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. But the question becomes, well, what if I have a triplet written in my simple meter? How do I know where to speak, especially the last two of the triple division of the beat, along with compared to where my duple division of tapping is going to be? Well, I have ironed this out for you. If I go to another screen, I want to show you that on the top half of this screen, actually let me put a dividing line here. On the top half of this screen, the relationship between triple division of a beat and duple division of a beat is always like this. It always looks like this. And that is the second note of a duple division, or let's say we're in 2/4 meter, which is simple meter. The second note of the normal duple division is always going to come exactly midway between the second and the third notes of triplet division. Here's another beat, same thing. In simple meter, the normal division is 2 and. Right here, these normal eighth notes. But triplet division in the same meter, this is exactly where the notes would line up. The second note of the normal division is going to be exactly halfway or midway between the second and third notes of the triplet division. Okay. Now, even though we're in simple meter, whenever we, as usual, when we have the normal duple division, we say 1 and 2 and. We've been doing that ever since Aural Skills 1. But now with this triplet division, and I probably should have forced a little bit of a, I'll try to force a little 3 in there to show my triplets. We don't have to come up with any new syllables to say. We're just going to use the syllables that we would normally say for triple division as if we were in compound meter, even though we are in simple meter. So if you have a triplet showing up in simple meter, you would just say 1 lolly, 2 lolly. The tricky part is how do you count that? How do you balance that? Where do the taps and where do all the vocals and the syllables that you're saying, how do they line up? Well, this is exactly how they're supposed to line up. If you can make sure that the second note of a duple division comes exactly in between the second and third notes of a triple division, then you're set. And if you can perform that, then you basically got what we need you to get down. You've got it under your belt. Okay? So what I'd like to do then is I'd like to just demonstrate a little bit of this, how you would say something like this while you're tapping something. And let me see if I have a good example. Maybe I could do it like, maybe I'll pick one out of the book. So take a look at example 14.2. This is in your sight singing text on page 213. And before I actually perform this rhythm, 14.2 as an example, again I want to show you how to combine the tapping versus the speaking and the conducting when you have 2 against 3. That's the main thing. So if I have 2 against 3, and by the way, I'm going to be tapping the regular 2 or duple division with my left hand, and I'm going to be conducting the beat, but I'm going to be saying it sometimes some triplets. So for instance, if I just made up a measure, I could start out 1 and 2, and then I could go into triplets. 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 and 2 and 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 la li, 2. And as I'm doing that, I'm making sure that I'm saying the la right before my second tap of the beat, and that I'm saying li right after the second tap of my beat. So that the la comes before your tap and the li comes right after. Let me try that just a few measures again for you. 1 and 2 and 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 la li, 2 la li, just so that those triplets are even. Okay. Now let's do the reverse. Let's pretend we are in compound meter, which has a normal division of 3 taps per beat. Okay? And while I'm tapping 3 times per beat, I'm going to throw in some duplets in my voice. I'm going to be saying 1 and 2 and against the 3 tap division in my left hand. So pretend I'm in a measure of 6/8. For instance, we'll start out normal division. We have 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 la li, 2 la li. Okay, now I'll throw in some duplets. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 and 2 and. Okay. Again, I'm saying an and right in between the second and third taps of each beat. Because each beat is being divided into 3 equal parts, and between the second and third taps of those equal divisions, that's where I say the and for a duplet. Okay. I say the beat right on the beat as normal, but the and comes right in between the second and the third divisions of the normal division. Alright, so with that said, let me go ahead and I'll just go and perform 14.2 for you from the textbook. And again, I don't know if you can see it super clearly here, but I'd rather you see and hear how the rhythm is performed. Rather, you can go ahead and follow along with the notation in your own textbook. Okay, so we're in simple meter, 2/4 meter, so I'm going to be tapping and conducting 1 and 2 and 1 and. Okay, so here I go. 1, 2 and 1, 2 la li, 1, 2 and 1, 2 la li, 1. Okay. Now, if this doesn't come automatically to you, that's fine. It takes practice. The nice thing about having a video of this is that you can again stop the video. You can go back in the video. You can play these sections of the video as many times as you need to until you get the sound and the feel of performing these rhythms in your mind, in your mind's ear. Okay, one of the last things, rhythmically speaking, in this lecture, I have a couple of short examples in compound meter or 6/8 meter. And again, if you can't see these that great, I do want you to be able to at least see and hear my performance of these rhythms. You can see that even though I'm in compound meter with normal triplet division of the beat, I have some duplets added in here. And again, the 2 must always be marked, just as when the reverse is true, the 3 needs to be marked for triplets in simple meter. Okay. So I'm going to start out with a standard compound meter, conducting in 2 with 3 taps per beat. 1 la li, 2 la li. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and perform this rhythm, the top one. One lolly, two, and one lolly, two, and. Down here, all I have are duplets in a single measure of 6/8. So even though I have to start with one lolly, two, I can say one and two and one and two and. Please practice that. You need to practice that between now and the final exam. Getting the duplets in compound meter, but then also getting triplets in simple meter. Triplets in simple meter. Now, before I go on to some ear training items, I do want to mention that the melodies of Chapter 11, which is where the final exam melodies come from, those melodies basically bring together everything that we have ever sung before. I don't believe they're going to include any triplets in simple meter or duplets in compound meter, so you won't have to worry about that. But I will say that the melodies in Chapter 11 are challenging. They are the most challenging melodies we have ever encountered to date. So please set aside some time for practicing those, singing those, conducting and or hand signing those as appropriate. One melody that I'd like to look at quickly before I go on to ear training is melody 11.3, and that's found on page 160 in your sight singing book. So, melody 11.3 is in fact one of the prepared melodies for the sight singing final exam. So I thought I'd get you started by taking a look at this one and pointing out some things you need to know, and then also performing this melody. Now, as you'll notice, this is in bass clef, and we're in simple meter, just regular 2/4 meter. Thankfully no triplets to deal with here. That's great. The key of this melody happens to be B minor. B minor. As I scan through the notes of this melody and I look at all of them, I will find that I do not have any instances of scale degree 6 or scale degree 7 in this melody. In other words, I don't have any G's in this B minor melody appearing, nor do I have any A's appearing. So I can't really tell you for sure if we're using La and T, raised 6 and 7, versus Lay and Te, lowered 6 and 7. But the point is moot, because we don't have any of those scale degrees present. So in terms of a scale that I will sing to warm up for this melody, just for variety, I'm going to use the natural minor scale. It doesn't matter. Scale degrees 6 and 7 do not appear in this melody, so any one of the scales, the 3 minor forms of the scale, is fair game. So I'll go to the piano and I'll get myself a B, and I'll go ahead and sing a natural minor scale, and then we'll take a look at how this melody sounds. So the scale first. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, te, do, te, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And you can arpeggiate if you want. Do, mi, sol, mi, do. I see that the first syllable, the first note I have is a low sol. That's going to be here. Sol. And it looks like this melody is conducting. So this is approximately what the melody will sound like. Again, if you do not want to know what the melody sounds like before you practice this, pause the video at this point and practice until you are satisfied, and then continue the video. Sol, do, 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 sol, do, 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 me, re, me, fa, me, re, me, re, me, fa, me, re, me, sol, 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 do, 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 me, re, me, fa, me, re, do, do. There you have it. So I'm hoping this will be enough to get you launched into some of these sight singing melodies. Please let me know if you have any questions as we go through the next week and a half. But I'd like to move on to ear training now. A few words about the rhythm dictation in your ear training. This information right down here on the bottom of this screen is very important. When you are listening to rhythms in simple meter, they will now may contain triplets. That's this row right here on the board. Try not to be alarmed or intimidated if you hear triplet division in a simple meter. All you have to do is remember that the note value or the note duration of the triplet division is the same duration as the normal, regular division for the meter. So if eighth notes are the regular division for the meter, then eighth notes will be what you write for triplet division. The only thing is that you have to remember to include the 3. And usually the 3 is included or written on the beam side of the notes. But if you write it on the note head side of the notes, I won't matter, as long as you have the 3 there somewhere to show me. Likewise, if you are dictating a rhythm that is in compound meter, with a dotted note value as the beat, we know the normal division is 3, the 3 divisions. And if your note value or your beat value is the dotted quarter, you'll have 3/8 notes. Try not to be alarmed if you hear duple division now, even in a compound meter. If you hear 2 even notes dividing up a beat while in compound meter, know that you'll just have to use the same exact rhythmic duration or value as the value of the normal division. So if eighth notes are used here, then eighth notes are also used here for the strange or new division, this duplet. And you'll just have to remember to put a 2 next to that beat or by that beat somewhere, preferably beam side, but that's the correct way to notate that. Okay, so you're going to have one final assignment before we finish this term, and part of it is going to be rhythmic dictation, and part of it is going to be harmonic dictation, which I will get to next. But again, the rhythmic dictation, when I give you the details of what page and what examples I want you to dictate for me, please be aware of triplets in simple meter now and how to notate them, and then duplets in compound meter and how to notate them. I think for dictation purposes, concentrate, obviously you got to keep an idea of where the main beat is at all times. But within each beat, see if you can focus on or listen to how many divisions in the beat do you hear. Do you hear 2 or do you hear 3? And that's going to give away, for instance, if you're in simple meter, if you hear 3 divisions of the beat, you'll need to write a triplet. But if you're in compound meter and you hear 2 even divisions in one beat, then you'll need to write a duplet. moving to some new harmonic dictation information. You've probably seen me write charts like this on the board in Aural skills before, but perhaps never with this many harmonies. This would be a good screen to take down and put in your notes for your reference. The top half of the screen deals with harmonic dictations in major keys. The bottom half of the screen deals with harmonic dictations in minor keys. The new chord that I am adding before the final exam is the mediant chord, or the 3 chord. In major keys, the 3 chord, we should know, is a minor triad. And the 3 chord in Aural skills, as we sing it, is going to contain the pitches, or the syllables mi, sol, and ti. When you sing mi, sol, and ti successively, you get a minor triad. In minor keys, however, the 3 chord, or the mediant chord, is a major triad. And the syllables used to produce the 3 chord in minor keys are the syllables me, sol, and te. Me, sol, and te. And these are the only new chords in our harmonic dictation charts. All the other chords we have dealt with, all the other chords we've at least had some experience listening to and practicing, identifying by ear. I don't want to overlook the obvious. In both cases, both major and minor keys, the 3 chord will occur when you have scale degree 3 in the bass. So in major keys, when you hear mi in the bass, that is a good indicator now that the chord above mi will be a 3 chord. Whereas in minor keys, when you have me in the bass, that would be a good indicator now that the chord above that will likely be a major 3 triad. Now, in actual music, in real life, usually when you have mi in the bass, the chord above it is 1/6. But since in the last few weeks of class here we are focusing very closely on the 3 chord, I want you to be thinking that when you hear mi in the bass, that the chord is probably, even though it's more likely to be 1/6, I'm going to give you most exercises and assign exercises where there's a 3 chord harmonizing the mi in the bass. Same thing for minor keys. When me is in the bass, most often in real life, the chord above me in the bass is a 1/6. Because the 3 chord is generally rare in and of itself. But because we are focusing specifically on the 3 triad these last few weeks, when you hear me in the bass in a minor harmonic dictation example, chances are the chord is going to be a major 3 triad. A major 3 triad. Some other things I want to point out that will help you distinguish perhaps the sound between a 1/6 and a 3. Notice that in major keys the 1/6 is a major triad, but the 3 chord is a minor triad. So you have a different type or a different quality of triad that your ear can listen for and pick up on. Same thing in the minor mode. When we have me in the bass, a 1/6 would be a minor triad sound, but a 3 chord is a major triad sound. So again, there is a stark or a clear difference in the terms of the triad's quality that hopefully you'll be able to listen for and train your ear to pick up on to distinguish between a 1/6 and a 3. A 1/6 and a 3. We know from theory class that the 3 chord is the weakest and the rarest of all the diatonic triads. And this is the last one we're going to deal with. There might be a 7 diminished triad that's diatonic, but we don't need to deal with that and we won't get to that. Okay. As the three-chord functions, let's think about how it functions in a progression in terms of what we've learned in theory. Let me go to this screen right here. The three-chord, whenever it's used, acts as what I call a predominant. Okay. And I can write that like this. A predominant. It really doesn't have an official function like the other diatonic chords do, but as a quote-unquote predominant, let's call it, it likes to go to regular predominants, such as 4. Also, it likes to go to 6, and occasionally it'll even go to 2/6. So, both in major keys and minor keys, I do want you to be aware that when you hear a 3-chord, the next chord in the harmonic dictation progression will likely be a 4, could likely be a 6, and maybe possibly it could be a 2/6. This is how the 3-chord functions in a progression. Even though it's weak, it is best to understand and regard the 3-chord as acting like a predominant. So it comes immediately before the normal predominant chords. In minor keys, we would have, if I just translate the same progression to minor, I would have minor 1, capital 3, minor 4, still capital 5, and minor 1. And again, the 3-chord you would expect is likeliest to go to either a 4 chord or a 6 chord, or perhaps more rarely, but still possible, a 2/6 chord in minor keys. Alright, so maybe using these two progressions that I have here, as we normally do in class, let me pick a key, choose a key for these, and then let me sing through these progressions by and vocally arpeggiating the chords as I go along. This way I want you to hear the sound of the notes of the 3-chord in both the major and the minor keys. I think just for practical purposes, maybe fits my voice range, I'll do the first one in the key of A flat major. I think that'll fit my voice range pretty well. So here we would have do, mi, sol, mi, do, mi, sol, ti, sol, mi, fa, la, do, la, fa, sol, ti, re, ti, sol, do, mi, sol, mi, do. Again, the important chord is this minor 3-chord. Mi, sol, ti, sol, mi. Hang on one second. Yeah, that was correct. I just wanted to make sure that my tuning was in the right ballpark. All right, let's go down to the minor mode, and I suppose I could do something similar. Maybe I'll just switch, go to the parallel minor key of A flat minor, and I'll sing this progression 1, 3, 4, 5, 1. So once again, do, me, sol, me, do, me, sol, te, sol, me, fa, le, do, le, fa, sol, ti, re, ti, sol, do, me, sol, me, do. The most important chord in this case to be aware of is me, sol, te, sol, me. So before I leave this 3-chord for harmonic dictation, I know we can't do an example here in class since you're not here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one out of the ear training book, and I'll tell you which one, what page it's on. And I'm going to play that progression for you once at the piano. After I play it, I'm going to go over the answers of what the chords are on the board. If you want to replay that progression on the piano several times more by going back in the video and just hearing it again and again, please do that. That would be great practice. So let me go ahead and tell you what I'm going to work on. I'd like to, in your ear training books, I'd like to use number 7 on page 193. Number 7 on page 193. And that happens to be in the key of F major, and obviously you will have the staff and everything you need in the book for number 7 on page 193. I can tell you, even though this is harmonic dictation, there are going to be 6 chords for this exercise. And again, I'm just going to play it once on the piano. Feel free to go back and listen to it as many times as you need before going ahead and listening to the answer, which I will come back to in just a moment. So here's number 7. The chords that you should hear, again, ideally I would be playing this at least probably 4 times for you in class. But the chords that I just played were 1, followed by 3. Then after the 3 chord, I have one of the predominants that you should expect, and that was I went to a 6 chord, and that was followed by a 2, then a 5, and then a 1. So once again, the progression, as you can see, was 1, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. From what I remember in past years, in these harmonic dictations that include a 3 chord, the 3 chord is very often the 2nd chord of the progression. Because we don't really precede the 3 chord with much of anything besides a 1. Normally 3 chords are preceded by a 1. They can be preceded by a few other things, but the majority of the time it is the 1 chord. And again, you expect the 3 chord to go to a 4 or a 6, maybe a 2-6. Okay, so use that knowledge as you work on your next assignment of harmonic dictation. So the last thing that I would like to discuss with you before my hour is up is how the 3 chord is used in real music examples. And everything that I have said thus far regarding the 3-chord in harmonic dictation examples also holds true for the 3-chord in real music examples. Okay. I have one short real music example that I'm going to start with, and I'll only play it probably one time and then go over the answer. But just like with the harmonic dictations, if after you listen to it one time you want to go back and listen to it several more times to see if you can identify the chord progression, please do that before looking ahead in the video for the answer. The first example out of two that I'd like to get through today for real music example is going to be an A-flat major, and there are only going to be 4 chords to identify. 4 chords to identify. Now, since I am not telling you otherwise, either for the first chord or the last chord, at least we can assume and be confident that the first chord is 1 in this major key. Now, I'm going to play this example, and I want you to listen closely. Again, play it over as many times as you need to. Listen closely for where you hear me in the bass, and where then you should hear a minor triad over me in the bass. Because remember, the 3-chord is minor in major keys.
The magic dragon lived by the sea.
Okay, that goes very quickly. I'm going to play it one more time.
Puff, the magic dragon lived by the sea.
If you want to listen to this a few more times before checking out the answer, pause the video or go back right now. Otherwise, I'm going to go through and show you what the chords should be for this. It's just a short progression. The bass actually started out on Do, and then it went to Mi next, and then after that it went to Fa, and then after that it went back to Do. So, because we're focusing on the 3-chord now, the second chord of this progression should correctly be, and is, a 3-chord. The chord after that happened to be a 4-chord in root position, and the last chord was 1 again. And there you have just a 4-chord short progression, but it does contain the 3-chord in it. By the way, I should mention, I've forgotten so far, but I should mention that when we use the 3-chord in this class, well, really in theory class as well, we're always going to use it in root position. You will never find or have to listen for a 3-chord in first inversion, and certainly not second inversion. So both in harmonic dictation and real music, the 3-chord will always be in root position. Root position. So, the other use, another way that the 3-chord is used, especially in real music examples, not so much in the examples of your textbook, but in real music examples, the 3-chord is used as part of a harmonic sequence. And I know it's been a long time since we have talked about harmonic sequences in theory. That was close to the beginning of the Theory 3 semester.